Uh-oh.
I love the fact that Turkey makes the matches he wants to make. He pays insane money on the highest level, and he's made certain matches that because he wanted to see them and paid money that was completely not, in my mind, from a pure business standpoint, justifiable. But he kept boxing alive the last couple of years. But I don't believe he ever did it with an intent of leaving this system in place. What's business 101, bro? If you want to take out some people or make change, what's the easiest way to make change? Take the powers that are, make them beholden to you, buy them, in effect, and you're in a much better position to defeat them or defeat the existing system.
So do you think this was always the plan?
Yeah.
Come in, do business with everyone?
You can't make it. Here's another way that they're operating in a manner that I think is intelligent. They're clearly, there's not going to, people keep talking about league.
It's not a league.
It's not a league.
It's a promotion.
Yeah, but it's not. It's a promotion in the Dana White,
UFC promotion.
Nick Khan, UFC, WWE sense.
I'm a lot more skeptical than Lou Dibella is. Lou Dibella seems to think that this was all a play, a masterstroke, if you will, to bring everybody together so that you can then take them over, except you haven't taken them over, and by going into business with Dana White for this TKO Boxing League, you have to consider it a league unto itself because they're not fighting for the same belts as everybody else. That's what makes it a league, more than just a promotion, another promoter. Not if you're manufacturing your own titles and you have your own distinct weight classes apart from everybody else. That if you're not competing against everybody else, then it's your own league. Your fighters. Let's talk about one or some of the inaccuracies in Lou Dibella's assessment. He says that Turkey's been keeping boxing alive for years. Turkey's only been in the sport of boxing for a little over a year. His late entry in 2023, all of 2024, and whatever he's got planned for 2025, but that's not years, that's a little over a year. It's an overestimation from Lou Dibella. That's an overestimation. What else? That going into business with Dana White for this TKO Boxing League spells the end for all the other game in town. How so? They stand apart from them. They exist in a universe parallel to the one everybody else is in, but not in their way. So how are they stopping them? How does that spell the end for all of the other game in town, the established game? There was really only one point that Lou Dibella made that I did agree with. Just one.
They couldn't get television or keep quality television contracts. I mean, how many networks have we chased out of the business?
There I agree. The sport of boxing is a product, at least in America. We're not talking about foreign markets. Not the UK, not Australia, not Japan, not Mexico. As boxing is actually flourishing in those markets, it's in the American market where it's declining. The point that Lou Dibella made about the sport chasing away major broadcasters, he was right about that. Boxing is broken in America. Let's get that established. There's only actually one major broadcaster left in the sport of boxing in the United States, and that's ESPN via the top-ranked deal that is set to be ending this summer. Rumor has it they may pick up Dana White's TKO Boxing League, and we'll see if they do, because that's just a rumor. So we'll see. But it's the only accurate assessment that Lou Dibella made in that entire interview, that boxing is very much broken in America, and the health of the sport can be measured against how many broadcasters pick it up or how many broadcasters don't. Because when broadcasters don't, That must mean they don't view it as worthwhile. They don't see a reason to invest. Too unstable, not enough ROI. And if that's the case and boxing is broken, then why is Dana White trying to get into the world of boxing? Why is he still trying to break into it? I thought it was broken.
If it's so broken, if it's so in the dumps now, why are these smart men getting into this business?
Because you can recreate it. Why did they get into UFC?
That's apples to oranges. When they got into UFC, it was a fledgling sport. It was new, whereas boxing is established. You can't liken one to the other. They were able to get into UFC for pennies on the dollar, and they built an audience. They weren't competing with anyone the way you would now be competing with a Matchroom, with a Queensberry, a Top Rank, a Golden Boy, and all of these other foreign promotional outfits like Taken, like Zenfer or Eye of the Tiger.
Sure, but they bought it for $2 million, and they were buying 3 letters back in 2000.
But you don't have to buy anyone right now. That's the joy. You don't have to buy anyone.
Well, that contradicts what you just said, Lou, that he brought everybody together and made them beholden to him. I think Lou is reading far too much into it, that this is all part of some master plan and all of this is a master stroke. This TKO Boxing League is not the answer to boxing's myriad of problems, and for all we know, Turkey's just a kid in a candy store, trying a little bit of everything, just because he can. Just because he can afford it.
By the way, the ratings organizations were all over Turkey. He wrote checks to the BC and the WBA. He created
They're having a Grand Prix.
Grand Prix, whatever the tournament is.
Yeah.
But he had no intention of he had no intention of keeping them in place.
Well, he's not exactly putting them out of business with Dana White. How? Just because Dana's fighters aren't going to be fighting for those titles, that doesn't mean somebody else's fighters won't.
I think Turkey understood, and by the way, I've been led to believe this by, I don't know the man. I haven't talked to him.
Have you ever met him?
No.
No.
Don't know the man. I know a lot of people that do. I know a lot of people that talk to him regularly. I know from those people that he made it clear that he never believed the existing system was tenable. He thought there were too many belts. He thought there were too many organizations. He thought, I think in the back of his head, he knew that he needed to tear it down to build it up again. That is what Dana has always said publicly, that the shit show that exists in boxing right now can't continue. He used to call major boxing events, what do you call them, fire sales or going out of business sales? Right. It's not wrong about that in the sense that we've always been people that basically made money grabs. There was never a strategy, a communal strategy to better the sport, to clean it up, get rid of bad decisions, remove judging from its connection to ratings organizations, stop paying ratings organizations to compete with one another, force them to create one organization so there's one champion per weight class. When you all have your little individual, though, exclusivity with a network, maybe you want as many belts as possible because everyone wants a belt. PBC wants belts, and Top Rank wants belts, and Matchroom wants belts, and Queensberry wants belts. And by the way, now that the 4 major promoters have something to worry about, and the ratings organizations have something to worry about, there'll be a little bit more cooperation. They're not going to all die overnight.
I don't think they're going to die at all, Lou. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think that in trying to understand what this league is going to be to the sport of boxing and the dichotomy between this league and everybody else, a lot of people with overactive imaginations have let their imaginations get the best of them. Run wild. Just because Dana's fighters are not going to be fighting for the same titles as everybody else, that doesn't mean they're putting everybody else out of business. And you know that it might actually have the opposite effect on Dana's fighters, that they're not fighting for the same titles as everybody else? What if you got some hot-to-trot fighter, some hot-to-trot WBC champion that people are gravitating towards? What is supposed to be TKO's answer to that when their fighters aren't fighting for those same belts? Understand that I'm not rooting for this league to fail. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around how it's supposed to take over boxing when it seems to exist almost separate from it, based on what we're hearing. How does that put the WBC out of business or the other promoters out of business? How? I don't see it. And then you think about the weight classes. The TKO Boxing League will only be comprised of 8 weight classes. The traditional 8 that boxing started with. But what that essentially means is They won't have an answer for a Bam Rodriguez who fights at super flyweight because they won't have a super flyweight division. They won't have an answer for undisputed super bantamweight champion Naoya Inoue because they don't have a super bantamweight division. No answer for all the boys at 168 at super middle because they don't have a super middleweight division. They don't have a cruiserweight division. Are you understanding that if it's your goal to develop fighters in these 8 weight classes, which one of these fighters is supposed to compete with the already established, already popular guys that compete at a weight that you don't feature? You don't have. You don't think that familiarity is important? Where I think it is. I think that matters. It matters quite a bit. And I think that people are grossly overestimating the effect this is going to have on the existing boxing landscape when what it seems to be is a biosphere. Tantamount to living inside of a jar and saying that you're changing the world around you by doing so. How? I think it's the associations. I think it's the branding that has everybody in a tizzy, that you got guys like Nick Khan and Dana White and Turkey, all these powerful men. And they are powerful. That when you see all of these powerful men getting together, you think it's cause for concern, but Turkey and Dana already worked on something. They already worked on Noche de UFC that they said was going to eat Canelo's event. Who fought on that same night? You don't remember what they said? That Turkey said they were going to eat him. Is that what happened? Did they stop Canelo Alvarez from getting his money? Did they cannibalize his event with theirs? No! It was business as usual for Canelo. So when I think about this, it just seems like more of the same thing happening on a larger scale. And that too many people are reading far too much into this. They're letting their imaginations run wild.
And that's sort of why I was making the point about Eddie and Bob and Warren and Oscar now being exactly what they used to criticize me for. Like when they got their exclusive deal and I couldn't get directly to a network, even when I had the talent, and that pissed me off, I'd have to go through them. And then they would actually have the nerve to take shots that I was a middleman. Me, who was running more local shows, putting my money where my mouth was, not making money doing Broadway boxing, 144 shows in New York City, dominant promotion in New York City for 20 years, right? But they were downing me for being a middleman. Well, guess what, mother? That's what you are now. That's what you are now.
The reason I ain't got too much stock in Lou Dibella's evaluation of all this doomsday scenario he's presenting seems little more than his own wet dream. He clearly has an axe to grind with the other established game in town who managed to finagle network deals where he could not. You're telling me that he doesn't sound bitter about all of it? Angry? Perhaps what he's describing is what he would like to be the case, what he would like to be the situation, that now Eddie and Frank and Oscar and Bob, they're all peons for Turkey. Why, because you felt like a peon for them? It's nothing against Lou. I'm just evaluating the situation the same way he is. And near as I can tell, this is a guy who's got an axe to grind, a guy who's angry, so when he looks at what's going on, he's looking at it through a certain lens. Promoters and their fighters are working with Turkey voluntarily. They don't have to. You got a fighter that doesn't want to box on a Riyadh season show. There's nothing that Turkey can do about it. Their promoters can't force that fighter to do it. Look at Javante. Turkey wanted him to box at Riyadh season. He doesn't want to go. It was recently proposed that Virgil Ortiz face Bakram Murtazaliev on one of Turkey's shows. That doesn't look to be happening. It's not indentured servitude. It's not bondage. What Lou Dibella is describing is perhaps how he felt having to go through these promoters via their network deals that he doesn't have. He might have felt like an indentured servant. Maybe he's just projecting. Because, as stated, I don't see how Dana and Turkey's biosphere is supposed to put everybody else out of business, all the promoters and all the sanctioning bodies. I don't see how that happens by them keeping to themselves. By not fighting for the same belts as everybody else and fighting everybody else's fighters. How does that put everybody else out of business? And it's not like Turkey has stopped working with these other promoters. He hasn't. They still got plans for the future and things that they want to do. So, as stated, I think what people have been running with is a gross overestimation of what this league is supposed to be in relation to everybody else. Chalk it up to agendas mixed with overactive imaginations. From a jilted promoter who's taken a would-be victory lap prematurely due to his misinterpretation of what's going on.
No, I'm not gonna test this channel. Of course I'm gonna. You know what I mean?
But do you think
like he will actually not be able to get up from your punch?
Well, I feel like if I hit anybody from from my weight class, or even all the way to like with the 160s, if I hit them with a solid shot right in the chin, I think anybody could go down. It's boxing. 8-ounce gloves.
The subject of Devin Haney's chin, his punch resistance, came up in yesterday's press conference. Devin said, I got up every single time against somebody who was on PEDs, so I showed I got a chin. Is that the way it is? Well, he's never been knocked out. Ryan didn't knock him out, even though people act like he did. He knocked him down 3 times, but he didn't finish him. Devin got up every single time. So does that mean that Devin has a better chin than he's being given credit for? Can a fighter be accused of being chinny when he's never been stopped? He's never been knocked out? I suppose that all depends on who you ask. What I categorize as being chinny is how a fighter holds a shot, irrespective of whether he's been knocked out or not, even if he hasn't. One of the telltale signs that he might be in the not-so-distant future is how well the fighter holds a shot. A clean shot that gets in. In junction with the fighter's powers of recovery, because you got guys like Tyson Fury, for example, that have been knocked down several times, but they recuperate, they recover, they get back in there, and perhaps win the rest of the round. Devin is chinny. I've long felt that Devin is chinny. A byproduct of staying in the lightweight division too long, and to some degree the super lightweight division, boiling down to those weights given his size and that his body was still growing, resulted in a fighter who doesn't hold the shot too good. I thought he was chinny, I still think he's chinny.
He's never been knocked out.
Okay, so if Devin goes the rest of his boxing career and never gets stopped, never gets knocked out, then I'll have to reevaluate that assessment. But right now, I ain't got a lot of faith in this kid's chin. I think he's chinny. He's fighting Jose Ramirez, a mid-range to inside volume puncher. Not a one-hitter quitter guy. He doesn't pack that kind of punch, but he does have a work rate to where maybe he doesn't need to be a one-hitter quitter guy to hurt Devin Haney, who I think is chinny. This fight is taking place in a welterweight division, which I think for Jose Ramirez and Devin Haney to some degree will be a breath of fresh air. Not having to boil down to 140, not having to cut those extra 7 pounds, both boys might feel better, reinvigorated at welterweight. Now, Jose might land with a bit more authority, bit more explosiveness as a welterweight. Devin's movements might be a bit sharper, quicker since he's not as depleted, though as far as holding a shot, having a chin. Pure boxers like Devin Haney, outboxers, outside fighters fight on the outside for a reason. Every time he's tried to fight on the inside, you see what happens. He gets slumped up. He gets hurt. He got hurt by Ramirez. No, he got hurt by Ryan Garcia, and that's when he was stepping into the jab, mid-range to inside, because at his very best, he stays on the outside. It's got to be in you to be that mid-range to inside fighter. That gutting and gritty fighter. You can try, but if you do, and it's not in you, you end up like Devin.
What are you talking about?
Nature versus nurture. There are some things you can learn, some things you can apply, but some things are in you. Outside fighters are outside fighters for a reason, much like inside fighters are inside fighters for a reason. What exactly dictates where the fighter is at their best? And Devin at his best is an outside guy. That can't be because of how much punch resistance he's got.